Relentlessly, unceasingly, the RAF are giving the Nazis no rest. This is the Mustang, the fastest Army cooperation aircraft in the world. They've already been in action, ground strafing the enemy in the Axis-occupied countries across the English Channel. The RAF pilots like them. German soldiers in northern France do not.
Goering, who once thought he had the last word in air forces, must now be well aware that he can hold out little hope of saving the remains of the Luftwaffe from final and complete destruction.
I hope you found that intro to be inspirational. The P-51 Mustang is a legendary icon of American air power, and naturally, people want to fly in war thunder. When you unlock it, however, you soon have this crushing realization that its performance doesn't even come close to expectations for arcade. Granted, in a typical game, you won't be up at 12,000 feet where the Mustang does what it does best, but it's still a heck of a letdown. If you're a devout P-51 enthusiast or someone who loves America, you're going to fly this thing regardless of how much it gets punished in arcade. So I'm making this video to help you use it to its full potential if you plan on using it anyway. However, there isn't really any emphasis on offense in this video. That's all very straightforward with the boom and zoom fighter. You dive on someone, put as much lead as you can into them, and then use your energy to try to retreat. My focus here is how to stay in the air when things aren't going so well. Keeping a few things in mind when you get in a sticky situation can really help your survivability. So let's get to it. In this particular game, I've loaded the Mustang out for ground attack. The P-51, like most American fighters, has a lot of payload options, but I tend to use the 1,000-pound bombs or the 127mm rockets. If I don't want to worry about not destroying something, I take the 1,000-pounders. If I think I will need to be able to maneuver at some point before reaching the ground target, I'll take the rockets. In this case, I loaded out the 1,000-pound bombs. The left side of the map is essentially vacant of opposition, and there are several pillboxes to attack there. For ammunition, I've equipped the ground target belts. Personally, I actually prefer the belts for ground targets against aircraft. I think the armor-piercing rounds make a big difference in racking up damage on structural members of the wing and tail, and the majority of the rounds still retain an incendiary component. Don't take any notes on this bombing run. It's pretty greedy and pretty sloppy. There's a Spitfire closing on my position. I didn't want to have that wait when it arrived, but also didn't want to waste a bomb. So initially I was going for that far pillbox, but then I changed my mind. So I start off reasonable approach on the first one, really shallow approach on the second one, but wind up destroying both pillboxes, and somehow I'm in one piece, which I'm not complaining about. The Spitfire's going pretty fast, so I turn into it, giving it a smaller window to aim and fire. So instead of trying to strafe me, he's smart and flies by to draw me into a churning fight. Due to positioning, I'll start with the advantage in the first pass, but a Spitfire will take it back very quickly. If I score some decent hits in the first pass, which I do not, I may have stood a chance. But now I really need to start looking for an exit out of the situation. The Spitfire is a beast of a turn fighter. So right now I'm in survival mode. I'm looping around, dropping combat flaps, anything to attempt to catch up to him. But what's important is I survive this pass, and now he has to turn around before he can pursue me. I'm headed out of there. However, there are two other fighters starting to close on my position. The closest threat is a J-7W. Now, he seems to really want a head-on pass, so I pull up to humor him quickly, but then I have to get down to business and build up some airspeed, because there's BF-109 in the dive that's about to join up with us. You can see him at the top right of the screen. He's going to catch up, but if I can survive the first couple bursts of cannon rounds, I should be able to hold speed and outrun him in level fight. I lightly porpoise to make myself a harder target when he gets to me in his optimal range. He does score a few hits, but nothing major, and he's used up his energy advantage. so I can breathe a little easier now, because they won't catch me in a straight line if my engine holds up, and I've been watching them nap. Since I peeled off the Spitfire, I've been leading them straight to my team, who are in a tight ball around our airfield for some reason. Even if the friendly fighters don't come to help me out, they should serve as great distractions if these guys get tired of chasing me. And it appears that is exactly what happened. So I think I'm going to get a little more proactive here and get some vengeance. I'm looping back around, and there's a BF-109. And there he goes. And here's the Spitfire. And somehow that took out his tail. We'll have to have a slow-mo clip of that later. Now the J7W is somewhere around here. Yep, he came along too. And it looks like he has a lot of friendly attention. I don't get him, but how much can someone ask for, really? There are a ton of allied fighters around here, so I'm going to go for a quick rearm and repair. Let's let the gear get down first, I suppose. But we have enough speed that we can hold off. And that ought to do. We're going to come to a stop. For those of you who caught a glimpse of that Wolf 190, you're absolutely right. This is about to get extremely predictable. And yep, this is probably going to hurt. Look at that. 4 fighters on him. Don't ever forget that the last name of the lead designer on the FW190 was Tank. Anyway, can't be upset with him for being an opportunist. I would have probably done the exact same thing in his position, except as a P-51, I doubt I would have killed him in one pass. We're now down to 8 tickets, and the margins are getting pretty slim here, so ground targets become really important. So I took the Bearcat in with some Tiny Tim missiles, mainly because they look cool. And I'll let this game finish out as we wrap up the replay here. But all we care about is the Mustang, so what should you take away? First of all, use the strengths of your aircraft. When you're in a tough spot, you need to know what your plane is exceptionally good at, and if you can leverage these abilities to get the upper hand, even if all you're markedly good at is running away. And stick to the plan. If you have someone behind you, you're pulling away, and they're firing shots, don't try to do any of this fancy evasive nonsense where you start banking or climbing if he's the only one giving you trouble. Another couple seconds and you may be out of range. By turning to get away from fire, you allow him to close the distance and continue firing. Similarly, in a climb you set airspeed an order of magnitude faster than you gain altitude. The pursuer doesn't have to be able to climb after you. He just has to angle his guns up and send a couple bursts into the top side of your aircraft, which is a much bigger target. Porpoising looks like a greenhorn move, because it probably is, but that doesn't matter much if it keeps you in the air. However, there's a right way and a very wrong way to do it. You can keep your forward airspeed if you keep the pitch motions gentle. If you jerk the elevator controls, you're going to pull G's and bleed energy right off the wingtips. In the same spirit, one thing that made the P-51 go so much faster than the P-40, even before the Rolls-Royce engine upgrade, were the slick laminar flow wings. If the angles in the porpoise become too extreme, the flow across the wing can become turbulent on the side opposite the direction of motion, causing the drag to skyrocket. Also, it does pay to know your enemy. This is much harder to do in arcades since the enemy can bring whatever they want into the game, but I was fortunate for the sake of this video that 2 of my pursuers were an extremely famous aircraft. People know the Spitfire is a dangerous turn fighter that will take a big piece if it gets a piece of you. And if a person doesn't know that, it's pretty easy to learn. I didn't know a whole lot about the J7W, however. I assumed a Japanese Burt Rutan was involved, but upon further reading, it turns out it was a prototype interceptor to be used against the B-29, which means really big guns and frontal armor, because American bombers. Blind patriotism and 50 cows of freedom isn't enough to make going head-to-head with the J7W1 a good idea. Fortunately, I played this game for fun, and I didn't have to learn that the hard way. The final takeaway is that it's better to be lucky than good. I'm sure in watching this replay, you came to that conclusion on your own. But if there is such a thing as luck, it's something you might as well have. Well, that's all for today. This was my first attempt at making a video of this nature, so if you have any suggestions, requests, comments, or insults, feel free to leave those in the comments section. In my next video, we'll be getting into the cockpit for some simulator shenanigans. Until then, God bless, and keep loving America. Thanks for watching.